if I stopped doing one thing to get a better outcome, what would that one thing be? Going to bed earlier, not watching Netflix as late. It knocked off about 80 to 90% of the things. A lot of people think that they need to add more exercise to their plan, that they need to add more healthy food to their plan, they need to add more healthy food to their house. Is that if we focus on things that we needed to stop doing, by default, we would get closer towards our goal. We need to put systems in place and we need to build an environment for success. That's a big lesson that I've learned this year. This always bends my mind a little bit. Did you know that 61.9% of those of you who listen to the show regularly haven't subscribed to the show? So if I could ask you a big favor before we start, if you like the show and you like what we do here and you want to support us, the free, simple way that you can do that is simply by hitting the subscribe button below. As we don't run ads on the podcast to provide the best uninterrupted experience possible, and my commitment to you is that if you subscribe, that I'll do everything in my power, my team and I, to ensure that this show is better for you every single week. And we will continue to listen to your feedback. We will find the guests that you want me to speak to and continue to do what we do. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. My name is Maxime. I'm going to be your show host. So today we're going to talk about not doing a to-do list and starting to build a stop doing list. So this is a topic that I brought up on a newsletter that I wrote a few weeks ago, and I got a ton of response from you guys that you wanted me to go a little bit more in depth on this topic. So here's the episode for it. And if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter yet and you want to get our incredible messages that I send every single week, there's going to be a link down below in the description for you guys to sign up for it. So when we think about, wanting to improve our life, wanting to develop, wanting to increase our skills and the quality of every area of our life, we always think about building a to-do list of new things that we need to add on in terms of skill, in terms of habit, so that we can start reaching some of those goals. We're going to talk specifically about fitness and nutrition for the sake of improvement of body composition, for the sake of getting healthier and getting fitter, because it's the Fit Vegan Podcast. So when we think about fitness, a lot of people think that they need to add more exercise to their plan, that they need to add more healthy food to their plan, they need to add more healthy food to their house, that they feel they need to put some locks on the processed food, they need to try to do a bunch of different things, when the reality is that if we focused on things that we needed to stop doing, by default, we would get closer towards our goal. And so when I brought that up on a group call with our members and in a newsletter, when you guys responded back, I was like, hey, what are some of the things that you would put on your stop doing list? Some of them were like, hey, I know that I have a lot of cravings during the day, and that is due to a lack of quality of sleep and a duration of sleep. And that's because I'm watching TV at night too late. So on a stop doing list for them, it would be stop watching TV so late, right? Stop eating processed foods in the evening time. You're making a rule for yourself that if you're going to have some quote unquote treats, that you have them before 3 p.m. That way, after 3 p.m., you're not going to eat that food and you're less likely to want to, because that's the time that most people are going to eat it. And so this podcast is going to be short because there's not like too much to it, but ultimately every single one of us is doing things that isn't serving us. And we think that adding more things to our plate is going to solve our problems. And the reality is that it won't, because adding more things to your plate makes it overwhelming. To a certain extent, it can be a form of distraction, because we can justify to ourselves of like, hey, I can't do this thing because I have all of these things on my plate. When the reality is that all of these things that are on your plate, some of those things you don't need to do. Some of those things are simply a form of distraction or justification as to why you can't stop doing this thing, and why you can't focus on the key actions that are going to produce you some results. I'm going to tie in a few concepts in this podcast, but one of them is, you've probably heard of the 80-20 rule. 20% of the actions that you do are producing 80% of the results that you are getting. So if I were to use that in the conversation of body recomposition, I would say, if you're sticking to your nutrition and exercising, that would be the 20% that would produce 80% of the results. Now, on the flip side, a lot of people are focusing on the 80% of action, which is only producing 20% of the results. That would be like people taking fat burners, right? Or people trying to take those little gimmicks that they see online. So if you take fat burners, it's only going to produce, honestly, not even 20% of the result. It's going to be so minimal, but people think that they need to take a ton of supplements or do a lot of different strategies that are unsustainable, and it's only producing a small amount of the result. It's only contributing a small fraction, where you can actually do less, like focus on your nutrition and exercise 3 times a week for 30 minutes and get 80% better results. So if I were to ask you what needs to start being on your stop doing list? What are the key things in your life that are preventing you from moving forward? Because if you're listening to this podcast, I'm just going to make a wild assumption here. You're someone that's driven. You're someone that wants more out of life. You want more out of your health. You want more out of your fitness, but you probably have that same mindset in other areas of your life. You want a better relationship. You want a better career. You potentially some impact that you want to have. You want to be a better parent. You want to be a better grandparent. Like you probably have that mindset if you're listening to this podcast. So it's not a podcast for people that aren't driven, because they would be turned away as soon as they listen to one episode, because it's all about self-improvement. And so if you think of each of these key areas of your life, your health, your fitness, think of your relationship with your partner, your kids, your grandkids, if you think of your career, if you think of your finances, if you think of your friendship, what are the things, if there was only one or two things that you can stop doing in each of those areas that would drastically increase the quality output in those areas, what are those things? Now, all I would do for you is to focus on stopping doing those two things versus adding a ton of other items to your to-do list. Because, hey, I'll be honest, I'm like every single one of you. I have to-do lists everywhere. I need to visualize and see my to-do list. And for some reason, I have one on Notion, which is a software that we use for our company. I have a notes in my iPhone. I have the little reminder thing on my iPhone for notes. I have a whiteboard in the kitchen, and I catch myself sometimes just writing things on each list. And it's not even the same list on all of those things. And if I was to compile all of it into one list, I'd have a massive list of things to do. And then when I encountered that concept of building a stop doing list, I looked at a lot of the items that were on that list that I needed to do. I was like, okay, what I categorize each item of my to-do list into each of those areas of my life. And I looked at each of those areas of my life. I was like, okay, if I stopped doing one core thing in my relationship, in my career, in my health, in my fitness, and if in wanting to improve my sleep, if I stopped doing one thing to get a better outcome, what would that one thing be? And then identify what that one thing was. As an example, going to bed earlier, not watching Netflix as late. If I did that, would that take care of a lot of the items that are on my to-do list? Because a lot of the things I put on there were to help me get a greater outcome in that area. And the reality is it knocked off about 80 to 90% of the things that were on my to-do list. Those to-do lists a lot of those items became irrelevant, because if I just stopped doing that one thing, those things would solve themselves, right? Within a matter of a week or a few days or a few weeks. And so I just needed to do one thing versus having to do 15 things in that area, right? It just simplified everything. That's a big lesson that I've learned this year. Simplicity. Things are always as simple as they seem, but because it's so simple, we don't feel that it's going to work. And because it's so simple, it makes it so hard to do, because the simple action is the most effective one, but it is the one that we have typically the most amount of resistance towards it, because we don't want to do it, right? Like we all know we need to stop eating junk food and not scroll on our phones all day and not watch Netflix super late at night. It is so simple, but yet it is so hard to do. And so the reason I want to record this podcast is because if you can allocate that energy that you're spending towards doing those 15 to 20 things towards just stopping that one behavior or stopping that one action, then you're going to get better results. And guess what happens when you get better results? You gain momentum. You feel better. You want to feel even better. You want to get even more results. You start to get even more driven, and you start to create better and better outcomes for yourself, because you start to stack those wins in your life. And so I want to help you shift that focus from a to-do list to a stop doing list. So again, if you're just at home right now, I invite you to sit down, write down the key areas of your life that are extremely important to you. If you're driving, don't do this. You can start to think of it in your head, and then identify what is one thing you need to stop doing in each of those areas in order to improve the outcome. then I would look at your to-do list that you have, that mental to-do list or potentially that physical to-do list that you have, and look at how many of those things are going to get solved by you stopping to do that thing. So now that is one thing, right? Conceptually, big overview, we need to stop doing these things. Now, how do we stop doing the thing? Now, here are two tricks that I personally like to use. There's two things. We need to put systems in place and we need to build an environment for success. Meaning we need to almost automate us doing the right thing. And second, in the environment, we need to build an environment where it's easy to do the right thing and hard to do the wrong thing. The two things, the systems and the environment. So the systems, let's just grab the TV as an example, because I honestly believe that if the majority of the world got more sleep, people would be less anxious, less depressed, have less cravings, lose more body fat, be fitter, be able to make better decisions for themselves, be less cranky, right? We can all agree to that. We know how we are after a short night of sleep. So if we can improve the quality of the sleep, okay, well, there's several things that we can do, right? Let's just talk about system first before we go to environment. System-wise, what is the thing that's preventing you from going to bed on time, right? One of them might be that you're drinking caffeine too late within the day. I like to stop caffeine 12 hours before bedtime as a simple rule. So that is a system that I've set for myself. If you want to, set an alarm on your phone. That way you don't have to remind yourself to not have caffeine, right? Putting a system requires you to not think. And so if I don't have to think about reminding myself to not drink caffeine, I can put an alarm at 10 o'clock in the morning. Let's just say I go to bed at 10. So I put an alarm at 10 o'clock in the morning. So when it goes off, I'm like, oh, that's my reminder. No more caffeine anymore, right? Or I can put one at 9:30 to remind myself to have my last coffee for the day, right? However you want to set it. But the system has to be outside of your head. It has to require no human involvement, right? So put an alarm. The other issue might be that you're watching TV too late. Or here's one thing I did, because I know how hard it is. If you're watching Netflix at night, it's a really good show and it's really hard to close. You buy one of those little Christmas timers, right? It's around Christmas time when this is going to go live. So you buy the little timer, you plug your Christmas tree in it and turns on the light at a certain time, turns it off at a certain time. Plug your TV in there. Plug your TV in there so that TV shuts off at whatever time you want. It can shut off at 9, at 9:30, at 10, whatever, maybe whatever amount of time you would need to be able to go to bed on time. So plug a TV in there, set the timer. You've removed human involvement into it. You're just relying on a machine doing its job. Now, I know that some of you are a little bit more intense, and it's the Wi-Fi that crushes you on your phone, right? So another system, personally, my charger for my phone is outside of my bedroom, and it's in the hallway. So I don't go to bed with my phone. So there's no scrolling happening, right? Anyways, I've deleted all the social media apps on it, but there's no scrolling happening. So I have to put my phone on the charger before I go to bed. So when I go to my bedroom, there's no phone. Let's bring it a layer deeper. Plug that timer for the Christmas tree. Plug your Wi-Fi router into it. That way, all the Wi-Fi in the house goes out, right? Now, I know that some of these solutions might seem extreme, but hey, that's maybe what's needed to kickstart you in the right direction, right? There's no amount of extreme, right? You think of people going to, getting diagnosed with cancer, whatever it may be, and going to True North and not eating food for 2 weeks, right? To some people that might seem very extreme, but like, hey, if that is what's needed for you to get better, then do it. And so if for you you're that extreme that you literally need to plug that timer into your Wi-Fi router into the timer to completely shut it off in the whole house, great, do that, right? You don't have to tell anyone about it. No one's going to judge you. It's only there for you to become better. If you need to put the charger for your phone outside the bedroom, do that. If you need to plug the timer into your TV, do that. And those are all systems that won't require any amount of willpower or discipline for you to do. You just got to set it once and forget it. Now, let's look at the second component, right? And I can do this exercise with fitness and nutrition. Let's do the second component. If we're looking at building an environment where it's easy to do the right thing and hard to do the wrong thing. Well, if you build an environment where that timer is there, like just say you have a TV in your bedroom, removing the TV from your bedroom and just leaving the TV in the living room and plugging the timer right there makes it a lot easier when you go to bed to not watch a TV in your bedroom, right? Another system for success for your sleep, it could be having blackout curtains in your bedroom to make it easier for you to have a good night of sleep, setting the temperature at a certain degree, right? We like to keep it around like 67, 68 when we sleep, because in order for your body to fall into deep sleep, your core body temperature has to drop a little bit. And so having a cold room does help with getting better quality sleep, right? It could be building an environment for success, could be, again, not having any junk food in the house. That's going to tie with the fat loss as well. But processed sugar is the number one killer of getting a good HRV the next morning, right? So for those of you that use a Whoop tracker or an Oura Ring tracker, it tracks your HRV, which stands for heart rate variability, which is the average of the pauses between your heartbeats. And they found that when there's an indicator that when that average of the pauses is higher, you are more adapted to take on higher levels of stress for the next day, meaning you're better recovered. And the lower the number, the less recovered you are, because you can your body is ready to take on less stress. And so the things that will tank that HRV number, that heart rate variability, processed sugar is going to be a really big one of those. And so not having junk food in the house at nighttime could help you get a better night of sleep. Having those blackout curtains, again, you can buy for like $20-$30 on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. I actually personally bought some, it's like some black tape, but that's meant to seal windows. And I put that over my windows, basically in the bedroom. So it's pitch black in there. There was lights from my little fan that I have. There's an air filter that I had a little light. I just put electric tape on top of the lights. That way there's no lights. I can't even see my hand in front of my face in my bedroom. So create that little environment to make it easy for you to succeed. Now, if we translate that to fitness and nutrition, like we all know the simple ones. Don't have junk food in the house. Have your gym clothes ready for you if you train in the morning to make it easy for you to train in the morning. Have your darn alarm clock outside of your bedroom or far away from your bed where you actually have to get up to shut it off. Because listen, if you have like 3 kids and a full-time job and you got to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to get your workout in before you go to work, because when you come back, you're taking care of the kids and you're super busy. Hey, not a lot of people like to wake up at 4:30. I'm sure many of you do, but most people don't like it, right? I wouldn't like to wake up. I used to, but I don't do it anymore. I wake up at 6 now. But 4:30, if I just have to turn around and press on it and snooze it, guess what? You're probably going to sleep into your time to go to the gym, and then you won't have time. You're going to be rushed for the whole day. And so if you set it somewhere where you actually have to get out of bed to go and shut it off, then you're already up, right? So then it's easier for you to continue to do the right thing, and it's harder for you to do the wrong thing, because then you have to walk out to your bed. As much as it'd be comfortable, you've already started to build momentum towards the right direction. And so that would be for creating an environment for yourself. If you have your food ready in the fridge for you, that is creating an environment where it's easy to do the right thing and hard to do the wrong thing. If you don't like meal prepping, there's an amazing company in the United States called Whole Harvest that we partnered with, that a lot of our members use when they're really busy. We love it. Ivy and I personally use it. I can put a link down below for you guys as well if you want to try them out. They're whole food, plant-based, great ratios of macronutrients, high in plant-based protein without using any of the fake meat and all that stuff. So the only one that I personally approve of, and that's Fit Vegan approved. So if you don't like meal prepping, getting some meal prep food, which is a lot more affordable than eating out all the time, and now it's easier for you to do the right thing, all right? So again, the things that I'm listing might sound so simple. And I know that many people are like, well, no, it's not that simple. It's actually really complex. It's actually really hard. Listen, if I sit down with you and we have an adult conversation, I know that what are the things that you need to stop doing, right? I know that you know what you need to change in your environment. I know that you know what systems you can put in place. Again, maybe the Christmas tree timer was the first one for you guys to kind of hear that. So that's what we do with our members, is we can give them external ideas to help them. But at the end of the day, you know what you're supposed to be doing. It's just that many of you never put a system in place for it, right? And many of you focus on thinking, I need to exercise every day for 1 hour. I need to do cardio every day for 1 hour. I need to eat, 1,000 calories less than my maintenance to lose weight. I need to cut out all of my carbs and blah, 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 blah. And many of you, if you think that you need to severely cut your carbs, severely cut your calories, do an hour of cardio every day, do some strength training 5-6 times a week, you think you need to do all of those things. And the reality is it's so hard. It's such a high barrier to entry that you'll maybe do it for a few days, maybe a few weeks, and you're just going to crash and burn because it's too demanding for what's on your schedule. If I just got you to start exercising 3-4 times a week for 30 minutes, Just that. We won't even look at the nutrition. We won't even look at cardio. We won't even look at anything else. By default, when you start exercising 3 to 4 times a week, you're going to start to build some muscle. You're going to start to feel stronger. And guess what happens after a good workout? You're less likely to want to eat shit food, all right? And you do that for a little bit. Once you do that for a little bit, eventually, you're naturally going to start eating healthier. Now it's about implementing the right proportions and the right structure to fasten the results from there. So you start to get even more results. The consistency of it starts to compound even more, and you get more driven into reaching your goal. So all that to say, the concept of building a stop doing list can be extremely beneficial for you if you're a type A overachiever, which I know many of you are, because we attract who we are, and that's exactly who I am. I am a recovering type A perfectionist overachiever. I'm trying to find some balance, but honestly, the key lesson that I've learned this year in this overachieving type A perfectionistic mind that I have has been down to boil down things to the most simple items that I can focus on. Because I found that when there's 20 items on my to-do list, like a lot of the time, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on the ones that are easier, and the ones that are harder, I'll leave them for later. But the thing is, every day I add new things to the to-do list. So the hard ones just always end up staying on my list, and I'm just always doing the easy and fast ones. And so I didn't found that to be productive. And so I found that when I started building a stop doing list, then I've cut out a lot of those small ones, because I realized that if I just did the big one, which was a part of my stop doing list, the small ones got taken care of. And so anyways, I hope this podcast makes sense for you. If I can, I'm going to link down below the newsletter that I wrote about this topic, so that you can read it for yourself. But again, down below, I'm going to link the page to sign up for the newsletter, because I take about a full 90 minutes every single week to write an incredible newsletter that will serve you guys as much as you can. And when you sign up for the newsletter, you also get a 6 email that basically gives you a step-by-step plan of how to improve your body composition on a whole food plant-based diet. Give you access to over 101 fit vegan exercise video that I've recorded. Get access to a meal plan, a lot of recipes, all the calculations and the math that you need to make to get started on your transformation ultimately. And so again, the link will be down below for that. But I hope this podcast helps you and resonated with you. One big thing that I ask is that if you enjoyed this episode and this topic, let me know in the comment section below. So if you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comment section below, because feedback is really valuable in terms of figuring out how can I best serve you in your transformation, in you bettering yourself, so that you can become a fit vegan. And a fit vegan is just a representation of living your best and greatest life. If you're listening on audio, feel free to send me an email when you join the newsletter. You can just reply to any email that we send you, and I will personally see every single one of them. I do love and appreciate your feedback. It's fun to hear from you guys, because a lot of times I'm just spending hours writing for all of these platforms. It's like, hey, is this resonating? Is this helping anyone? So it's really beautiful to hear from every single one of you. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you have an incredible rest of your Thursday. We have some awesome episodes coming in the upcoming weeks. You may have noticed that the structure has shifted slightly, and how we do the introduction and all of these things. And so we're always looking to level up and improve. And a big part of that has been building a stop doing list and focusing on the 80-20 rule, so that we can produce greater outcomes and reach more of you guys, to serve more of you guys. Next week, I believe on Thursday, I haven't recorded it yet, but I'll be recording a podcast on the transformation flywheel. I wrote about that in the newsletter before this episode went live, about the transformation flywheel. And I've already gotten a ton of great responses from you guys, because it went out this morning and you guys really loved it and the analogy really resonated. So I'm actually going to make a full podcast on that as well, because I understand that in order to create change in someone, the main part, the most powerful part, is creating a shift in perspective and reframing a situation. So as an example, you're going throughout your life, you're living a certain way, you're eating a certain way, you're being active or not active in a certain way, and then you get a heart attack, you get a cancer diagnosis. Then all of a sudden you're like, I should change how I'm eating. I should change how I'm exercising. I should change how I'm living my life. I should probably have less stress. I should probably deal with some of my trauma. I should probably improve some of my relationship. Well, your life is the same. All you got is someone told you a few set of words right? We'll use cancer because a heart attack, you would feel it. But you just, someone told you a few set of words of you have cancer, which ultimately reframed how you now view your life and how you now view your future. And so a reframing and a shift in perspective on the same situation can be very powerful. And that's why when I record these episodes, when I write in a newsletter, you notice that I'm not always writing about here's the most ideal amount of protein that you need to hit and the exact amount of carbohydrates from these food, because it doesn't matter. Like if you're struggling with your weight, if you're struggling with your nutrition, if you're struggling with exercising and getting great results, you can't optimize nutrition, because if you optimize nutrition, you're still not going to stick to it. And so if you have an optimized plan and you don't stick to it, the issue is not the plan, is the fact that you're not sticking to it. Because you can have the best plan in the world. If you don't do the plan, you're not going to get results. And so the optimization, we do that inside of our program, and we do a lot of reframing initially. But if I can get your mind to shift and shift your perspective on how you view your current situation, your present, and how your future is going to be built because of the actions and of you're taking now and how you're living now, if I can shift and reframe that to make you have that wake up cancer moment without actually having the pain that comes from that, then I think that's the most powerful thing that I can do for you. Because once I got your head in a place of, oh, I need to change, I'm going to do what is necessary, then you can have the optimized plan. Because if you're not going to stick to it, it doesn't matter what the plan is. It's not going to change anything, right? I'm sure you've gone a lot of plans in your life and you've never stuck to them truly to get the outcome that you wanted to. So the plan is irrelevant until we can shift your perspective. And that's why we spend like 80% of our time with our members is on the mindset piece. Can we reframe and shift the perspective on current situation and how we view how we're doing things to create a different outcome, because we do have the optimized plan available for them. And so just want to pass that on with you. Again, this past newsletter, honestly, probably my proudest one. The transformation flywheel, that was like such a great analogy to shift perspective. So I'm going to toot my own horn for a sec. But yeah, if you have a chance to read it, you should definitely read it. So I'll say massive thank you for listening to this episode. If you aren't subscribed or following the channel yet, I invite you to do so, because that is our number one way to grow and impact more people. And we've grown a lot in the past month or so. So we have a certain goal. If you're watching on YouTube, I have a goal of reaching 7,000 subscribers before the end of 2024. So if you can help me make that happen, that would be appreciated. Feel free to share the channel with other people that you think would benefit from it. And hope you have a great week and enjoy this Saturday's cooking video, because Ivy and I got dressed for Christmas and prepared a delicious recipe for you that you can try with your family this holiday. All right. So see you guys in the next video. Bye.